lifeboat.
I couldn't believe Zach stole the lifeboat. I had only one thought on my mind. If I survived this, I was gonna find Zach Penn, and I would hunt him down, and I would strangle him with my 2 hands.
I really gotta figure out a better bit. So here I am again. This is Zero Progress, and to be honest, when I make a video, I tell myself never to really expect it to get any sort of attention. And so, after the response the last one got, I figured let's make another one of these found footage lists. So here we are with another 5 forgotten and at least a few of these genuinely disturbing found footage movies. And this time I tried to challenge myself in the unknown category and really dig up some found footage movies or found footage mockumentary style movies that were genuinely forgotten and unknown that I don't really see here on YouTube or talked about in the horror community and whatnot. So yeah, that's what I'm bringing you here. And I should make a note that I'm going to do something different when it comes to me making one of these videos, in that I'm going to actually watch these movies in real time, come right back here, give you my thoughts, opinions, plot summary, and all that good stuff on it. And so yeah, we might as well just jump into it with the first movie here, Incident at Loch Ness. Released in 2004, I am shocked how forgotten and unknown, or at least not on anyone's radar, this movie seems to be, at least to me. I don't know. Maybe it's popular out there and I'm just completely unaware of it, but I don't see too much attention on it. And the reason I say that is because this is a found footage mockumentary, comedy, drama, very light horror movie, produced and starring Werner Herzog, and directed and written by Zach Penn, who was a story writer on The Avengers and X-Men 2 and a bunch of other Hollywood stuff. So I don't know how many of you can say you've seen a found footage movie with a Jeff Goldblum cameo in it.
So it's a film crew. I know John Bailey. How are you, John Bailey?
The Werner Herzog element of it all completely makes the movie. He just gives so many great monologues and really utilizes, the cliche he's known for, which is just contemplating life in that amazing accent.
I've always been interested in the difference between fact and truth. And I've always sensed that there's something like a deeper truth. It exists in cinema, and I would call it the ecstatic truth.
So the plot of this movie is simple but might sound complicated, so here we go. The basic premise is you're watching a documentary crew who is following Werner Herzog and his process as he starts directing a new documentary. This documentary being produced by Zach Penn, a typical Hollywood commercial producer who's trying to do something interesting with Werner Herzog for the first time, and he brings the money. And Werner wants to make a movie about people's fascination and the enigma of Loch Ness. And so he wants a cryptozoologist who's really invested in it but also seems credible and makes all these demands of Zach and whatnot, and goes out to Loch Ness to just kind of make one of his standard contemplative documentaries about life, except aimed at people's need to believe in something more or greater through the lens of the Loch Ness Monster. Very Werner Herzog. And so for the first 50 minutes, you get that. You get a documentary crew documenting Werner Herzog making a documentary. You're basically watching a movie's production implode in a matter of a couple days due to an incompetent producer that keeps lying and trying to turn this beautiful Herzog documentary into something more commercial and marketable for profit.
Look, I do have some concerns, and I really needed to talk to you about it.
Yeah, what is it?
Well, I mean, mainly my lighting package. My lighting package is tiny.
What do you mean by lighting package? Because we don't need any. It's a documentary.
And Zach Penn is basically trying to turn this movie into more of a what you could consider overt parody by like throwing in a hot ditzy like sonar doctor that's clearly a paid model, and making like a fake Nessie head that's like remote controlled that he's going to use to fake the footage as if they actually found the Loch Ness monster. And honestly, like, Werner Herzog is what keeps the movie tied together. His reaction to everything, a scene where he calls Zach on his bullshit is great.
What do you mean?
You are shooting with a cinematographer all alone, and I'm not there. And you have this girl in a bikini, and she's supposed to be a sonar expert.
Well,
come on, I'm too long in the profession. I'm just too long in the profession to know what's going on.
All right.
It's a hoax. It is just a hoax.
I think you're really overreacting.
Now I'm smelling a rat against the wind.
They know what they're doing with Werner Herzog being a part of this. It's fun. But 50 minutes in is when you get to the movie's big twist. And that is that they actually come across the real Loch Ness monster while out there on day 3.
He started saying, I see something, I see something.
I turned and looked out the window.
I started yelling at Gabby to stay on the shot.
And then I saw you running, and I just followed you out there.
Something there.
What's going on?
There's something out there. Yeah, something on the
What
water.
is that?
Yeah.
But as Werner and the rest of the people become obsessed with potentially actually finding the Loch Ness monster, it starts like attacking their boat as if it's hunting them for some reason.
As I was sitting there in the hull, it dawned on me that whatever film I had planned had evaporated. And your film, John, this study about my life had turned into maybe some sort of a horror movie.
And this is when I'll bring up, I guess, a choice the movie makes, which is fine for what it's doing, but it may or may not be your taste. It does have a overly comedic comedy-like soundtrack, kind of definitely meant to clue the audience in on like the meta-comedic nature of what's going on, which is fine. I just found it a bit too like overt and obvious, but whatever. It's still enjoyable. And so after the Loch Ness monster body slams into the boat and it starts sinking, scumbag producer Zach and production coordinator Robert, who I unfortunately relate to as we are kindred spirits in our job titles. But, you know, they steal the only life raft dinghy, leaving everyone else to die, like Zach is the piece of shit he is. And in that moment, as the boat is sinking, Werner makes the decision to grab the camera, which has been already put in a housing earlier to protect it. And unlike a bunch of other found footage movies, you get a fun Werner Herzog explanation on why he kept filming.
I don't know exactly why I picked up the camera. It was probably instinct from years of making films. There was nothing left to do at that point but shoot.
And everyone is forced into the water on their life jackets to tread water and hopefully not get eaten by the Loch Ness monster. And that's when Werner Herzog manages to capture actual footage of the Loch Ness monster as it bumps up against him.
There was something in the water ahead of me, and I ducked beneath the surface to film it.
And they also come across evidence that the life raft that scumbag Zach was on was attacked. And although Zach survives, Robert, I'm sorry to say, rest in peace. He's never recovered and his body's never found. So yeah, that's essentially like, you know, the kind of meta thing going on at the end of the movie, that the incident at Loch Ness is a documentary interviewing the survivors of the documentary Herzog was trying to film, where he actually came across the Loch Ness monster and just happened to also be following by another documentary crew who was filming his process and making a documentary. Not complicated at all, but very meta, which I enjoyed, I like, and they were definitely having a lot of fun with it. I'm sure Werner Herzog was having a lot of fun as they were making the movie. I don't think he gets to be in comedies like this a lot, which the more I think about it, the more I'm willing to say this is more an overt comedy, drama, mockumentary, meta commentary on how a movie production falls apart. And then they happen to come across the real Loch Ness monster for some meta fun storytelling entertainment. I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. It's actually on YouTube with ads, so you can just watch it right now, and it's definitely worth it. I didn't I kind of just jumped into not worrying about spoiling stuff, but I didn't reveal everything. So there's a lot of stuff that you'll watch and be like, oh, that's pretty funny. That's great. And like I said, the Werner Herzog monologues and just him as an element in this movie is fascinating and awesome to watch. And yeah, definitely check it out. I don't know what else to say. So moving on to our next movie, which has always been on my radar to watch, and I kept like never watching it and forgetting about it. So I'm using this video as motivation to finally check it out. Home Movie.
Home Movie! For Home Movie, press 1.
So Home Movie is something. Released in 2007 by IFC, it is essentially the personal home movies from a consumer-grade digital video camera at the time from the Poe family, made up of mother and father David and Claire and their twin 10-year-olds Jack and Emily. And right off the bat, the movie does try to present itself as something that is been edited in camera. And what I mean by that is it's like the editing technique where you're literally recording over footage on the DV tape itself so that in playback, you know, it's like a jump cut there and whatnot. I think that's what the movie's going for. That's the only explanation I can come up with for a lot of the editing choices and the way the movie presents itself.
Come on, guys, it's time to eat. Your mom's been working on this turkey all day.
These are the home movies of a 6-month period, so we get like a 6-month look into the life of this family and what is essentially their breakdown, due to the fact that Jack and Emily, the 10-year-old twins, are some demon child. Like, I'm talking Village of the Damned, Children of the Corn type stuff.
Hey, Ann. Have you seen your dad's ball? Okay. Well, I'm gonna go look over here. I thought you said you didn't see it.
Before we get into that, let's talk about David. David is the father and is implied to have had an abusive childhood himself, and he also happens to be a Lutheran minister. Religion is a big part of his punishment toward his children and his philosophy and how he raises his kids. And the antithesis of that is his wife, Claire, who is a renowned doctor psychologist. And that also gets into the motivations of why they're recording so much. The camera is like a new toy to David, but Claire is also using it to record like video diaries of herself talking about her troubled children, as well as documenting said troubled children, almost like a clinical trial, like she's trying to diagnose them.
Okay. I'll take the pictures back now, Jack. Give me the pictures.
And as the movie plays, you recognize pretty obviously that these twins don't behave normal. Like, they pretty much don't talk the entire movie, except for like one scene where it's established they have their own twin language so they can talk to themselves, which the movie tries to play creepy, but every time that trope is done in a movie, it's always comedic. I feel that's like a trope we can abandon in the past.
Hush, 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 hush. What are you guys saying? I don't like that thing. It's like their own language.
But they also do insane other things, like on Thanksgiving, refuse to eat and just keep dropping everything whenever the dad tries to pray. Killing a frog behind their dad's back when he's trying to like teach them like work lessons out in the shed. Making a sandwich out of the family's pet goldfish. And you know, just like I said, demon child stuff. And what becomes a part of the movie is the challenging philosophy David, the father, has with Claire, where David thinks there's some sort of demonic presence or something influencing his children. Claire thinks it's mental illness that can be treated through prescription drugs and actual counseling and identifying the root of the problem, which she starts to suspect is her husband David, because she finds David one day in bed with the two kids and the two kids are covered in bite marks, and she believes David did it because of the abuse he suffered from his father. And the movie is really oddly paced. Like, It takes its time, really giving us a lot of slice of life with like the family just being the family and the dad trying to make the kids normal and whatnot. But then the big stuff that happens, like her accusing him of abusing their children and almost going for divorce, happens like that, because I guess through the nature of how the movie is presented to the audience, like it makes sense, but it's not very satisfying. Like things like that just kind of happen. But eventually it's shown that it was actually the demon children themselves that bit the hell out of each other, because the twins get expelled after cornering a fellow student at school in the bathroom.
Once inside, they locked the door and began to bite him repeatedly. And they just wouldn't stop.
It's really messed up. It definitely shakes the mother, and she starts recognizing that there is maybe more going on with their kids that they can't deal with. All of this eventually culminating in a big burst of emotion where the father can't take it anymore and does like a pseudo out of nowhere exorcism on his children, even though he's a Lutheran priest and admits there is no exorcism in the Lutheran faith, but he goes for it anyway. And it seems to have some effect. Like there's audio editing and shaking of the house to imply it's doing something, and the kids start talking normally. But also at the same time, the mom thinks that she figured out the diagnosis of the children and found the right cocktail of meds. So, you know, the movie plays ambiguous. It could be either or.
I'm happy to report that since my last report, Jack and Emily's antisocial behavior has surceased. The Haldol and Vesperin show no negative side effects, allowing them to successfully re-enter school.
Or it could be the ending the movie actually gives us, which is the reveal that the kids have been kind of just pretending to be good for a few months after the exorcism and correct diagnosis. They invite that kid over that they bullied or bit the hell out of at school to like just play video games, and it seems to all be going well until they sneak out to their clubhouse, and David finds them having covered the boy in plastic bags on the table as if they're about to eat him for dinner. Like, I guess a throwback to the Thanksgiving scene. And we actually get an interesting kind of realistic depiction of the parents then later making like a video diary to camera where they said like the cops have been alerted to what happened. Like they didn't just kill this kid. Like their twins, the demon children, Jack and Emily, are going to have legal consequences for what they did. They're going to prison, which also makes it obvious that the kids no longer have anything to lose. So the parents shouldn't be feeling nearly as safe as they do before this final sequence. And now that the kids have nothing to lose, they put in their grand plan, which is, murder their parents. They essentially ambush their parents with a baseball bat while they're asleep, beat them, set up some traps for their mom who tries to escape. They somehow drug their parents with the same drugs the mom was giving them, which the mom earlier teed up could cause like locked in syndrome. And the kids get one up on their parents, stalk their mom as she slowly succumbs to the drugs in the woods, drag her back to the house, and I guess set their parents up on the dinner table tied up with like forks and knives. I guess the implication is they're going to eat them because they have like a weird fascination with eating raw meat. That's another thing in the movie. The movie throws a lot at you really quick about how evil and messed up the kids are. It's honestly like too much. They're throwing everything at the wall. I mean, that's home movie, really. It's fine. It's very meh, honestly. It is committed to the DV tape handycam recording of it all, which is impressive. You know, other than that, and it being an example of a very early found footage movie before the eventual found footage boom caused by paranormal activity. So as that place in history, it's interesting to watch. But, you know, just as a movie on its own, check it out, I guess, if you're so inclined. But yeah, home movie. Now we're moving on to something more interesting and I think kind of lost to time and forgotten, but is very unique in its story and its subject matter and how it presents it. So It does have some interesting things going on. Let's get into A Necessary Death. I guess warning right out the gate, if you're sensitive to plots and storylines that involve someone consciously ending their own life, that's the entire point of this movie, so skip over it if that makes you uncomfortable. I first came across this movie when I was in college, when I was going through like a really meta storytelling, like found footage, analog horror kick. Like I was just obsessed with it. And this one's different in that it's not an overt horror movie, it's more a drama, mockumentary, documentary thing. And to understand what I'm talking about, the basic premise is that our main character Gilbert is doing his final thesis project for film school, and he decides to make a documentary enlisting the help of his cinematographer friend Michael and on again, off again girlfriend Val as the sound recordist. And the idea for his documentary is that he puts listings out there on Craigslist and a bunch of other internet forums asking for anyone who is planning within the next month to end it all. And he wants to essentially follow them along through their last month of life on that journey and document that whole process up into the point of moving on.
So what I want to do is find a person who is actually set a date for when they're going to kill themselves and is going to go through with it, and I want to talk to them, interview them, you know, and just follow them around.
And there you go. I mean, that's the movie. The first 15 minutes play as Gilbert and his two friends, filmmaking friends who he's kind of brought along to do this project with him, interviewing potential subjects and people who answer his ad. So they're interviewing people, and that actually includes an interesting cameo from a very early in his career, Riz Ahmed from The Night of and Rogue One. So it's kind of cool to see early actors like that in projects like this. And after consulting a lawyer on the legality of making a documentary like this, the crew eventually pick one of the people who responded to their ad, Matt, who is a foreigner living in America. His mom lives in LA near him as well, so he has that family connection, and it turns out that he has a brain tumor and is going to die. It's terminal. He can't prevent it.
Butterfly tumor starts in one side and it moves to the other. A butterfly, like it moves to the other.
And before I keep going into the plot, I should bring out that the movie does have that obvious film school amateurish feeling and presentation to it, which, you know, it is a literal film school project, I believe. So I like it lines up with the narrative, but there's some stuff with the pacing and the way the movie's edited and presented that feels like too fast and then too slow and then too fast again, or like things kind of just happen because the movie needs characters to start behaving and acting this way. Things like that, which, you know, might turn some people off. I was able to deal with it because the plot of the movie is so unique and it's presented so originally. Like, I haven't seen anything else kind of like this, so the originality of it makes it worth watching. But getting back into the plot. And so we get 30 days of the film crew following Matt around. And they start to become really friendly with him and like him, and they kind of become like a close friend group.
You, going down.
And, you know, the movie really humanizes Matt as a person while also trying to get you as the audience to kind of relate from his perspective of not wanting to deal with the effects of the cancer that he knows is going to kill him. Are introduced to his mom and their relationship, and she's like a sweet woman, and the crew's kind of left shell-shocked from this, where it's like really starting to hit them like how real what they're doing is and potentially how exploitative it might be, and, you know, the morality of whether or not this is a legal or good or ethically okay idea to even do.
So nice. She just was welcoming and invited us in and was so happy. She was so happy, like, oh, of course, you know, other people have seen that spark that I've always seen in my boy. And I want to do a film about him. And fucking, I almost died. I can't tell you how intensely, my entire intestines just clenched, and you're sitting there across from her table, and you're lying to her.
It starts becoming obvious that Val, Gilbert's on-again, off-again girlfriend, and also sound recordist, like I mentioned, is catching feelings for Matt. And it's eventually revealed that they kind of start dating, and Matt decides to not give up on the cancer treatment suddenly, not end his life, and try to fight because him and Val are dating, which throws a complete wrench into the entire documentary. Like, the documentary was pitched to the film school as following someone who's committed to end-of-life care, and it was also successfully pitched to a studio for TV that wanted to buy it, who now no longer have any interest in it. So like the whole production's been completely screwed over. Gilbert no longer really has a future in film because it was going to be his big break into the industry, which that is now gone. And that becomes like a big point of contention where Gilbert's mad that he doesn't have his ending, which, you know, is morally effed up when you think about it. But he's also mad that Matt didn't invite him in to film that moment of clarity when Matt decided not to end it all.
Then, surprise ending, we get a call today that says, hey guys, this is Matt.
I'm sorry I haven't got back to you recently, but so much has been happening. I have a new ending for the documentary, a twist, a happy ending, and I'll let you know all about it, but you're going to love it.
Honestly, yay, good for Matt, good for life. Yeah, what a documentary.
Obviously, if that's where he's at, it would have been nice to be there when this development happened.
And this kind of actually makes me realize this movie really much relates to Incident at Loch Ness, where you're kind of watching another meta story on how movies, specifically documentaries, are made and how dubious and like crazy those productions can be, which I can personally account to. So there's days on set on some shoots I've been on where it feels like off and weird and bad. I guess that's maybe another factor that I'm able to relate to and why this movie interests me so much, because like I see things I've lived through in it. Like obviously not this story directly, but like the exploitative feel and nature of what we're filming that day. And so yeah, Gilbert's documentary has been completely destroyed by Matt's decision to keep living, and that is brought on by his relationship with Val, who has a huge falling out with Gilbert. Michael also has a falling out with Gilbert over this because he's actually really close friends with Matt now, and he doesn't like the feeling of Gilbert kind of encouraging someone to go through with their plans for the purpose of what is ostensibly entertainment.
Came over to talk about the documentary, then he started saying these things about Val that were complete nonsense. I listened for maybe 15 seconds and then was like, Gilbert, if you're going to be like this, leave. I don't need to hear this. It's complete rubbish. You're speaking nonsense. Go.
I understand why everyone's, frustrated. I'm frustrated myself.
But eventually, and the movie kind of does this weird, because I think like they realized they needed to wrap it up because the pacing here is way too quick for what happens, but it's implied that Gilbert manages to manipulate Valerie into coming back and dating him again and breaking up with Matt and revealing that to Matt in a way where he essentially catches Val cheating on him.
It's like in Clue. Who killed Matt? It was Gilbert in the bedroom with the boxers.
So you just wanted to bring me up here to accuse me of having done this on purpose for the documentary.
To ask you if it was a coincidence.
Matt becomes horribly heartbroken, feeling betrayed, and at a horrible depressive low, combined with, everything he's been through the past month with this film crew is really messing with him, and he does fully commit in these final few scenes to do it. But his only request is that Gilbert be there to film it, and Gilbert be there when it actually happens. I guess is like a bit of like psychological revenge, that's kind of what they set up. But also Matt says it as, well, you started this journey with me. At this point, you're going to be there at the end as well. Because I'm sure some of you are watching this and you're kind of maybe picking up what's going to happen, and that is what happens.
I know a few of you didn't want to, and I'm very grateful that you all turned up. It shows that you all care. I do. Daniel? So don't be beating yourselves up thinking that you had something to do with my death. Please carry on living your lives the way you want to.
And everyone's outside the storage unit. Gilbert's in there filming Matt, and you hear a pop. And everyone reacts to it like knowing what's happened, and they're all sad. And then you hear a second bang. It's revealed that this turned into a murder. And that's kind of the big emotional heavy hit and twist to this movie, is that Matt made all these plans to do this, and this documentary crew wanted to be a part of that. But them being a part of it changed everything and added all these other variables that led to an even greater tragedy. So, I mean, that's a necessary death. You kind of get the irony of the title and whatnot now. Very amateurish, very student film, which makes sense when you consider the plot and the level of filmmakers doing it. I believe this was a film school project. Wholly unique in its plot and story and the way it presents it, but also obviously not a movie for everyone. Not straight horror, definitely much more of a like mockumentary drama movie that leaves you feeling like not great at the end. I don't know, if what I've said intrigues you and you feel like you're the kind of person to check it out, you can find it from a bunch of places online. I'm not exactly sure where else it is streaming, but you know, you do the right internet searches, you can find it. And if you want to check it out, check it out. All right, from here, moving on to our next movie, which has been on my list of movies, found footage movies, and just horror movies I need to check out. So why not use this as motivation to finally watch it, right? And this movie has a bunch of different titles that I found online, but let's just go with Descent into Darkness, My European Nightmare, aka Sigory Parkov.
Good morning, everybody.
Kind of wish I had been recording myself while I watched that. My European Nightmare, aka Descent into Darkness, aka Sergei Barkov, is at the very least I can say it is incredibly well acted, it is well made, and incredibly effective for what it is attempting to do. But man, it was a hard watch. And if I thought I was having a hard time censoring myself with the subject matter of the last movie, I didn't know what I was getting into with this one. Trigger warnings, I guess, for pretty much everything. I think calling this the found footage a Serbian film is a pretty apt description, and I kind of always avoided watching this movie, not because of that, but because I always thought it was something closer to like the Guinea Pig movies or August Underground, which it's not. And those movies, like I hardly even like call them movies. I get what they're doing, the August Underground series and like the Guinea Pig film series. It's like started out with the idea of let's make what a actual serial killer snuff film would look like violence for the sake of violence, which honestly is kind of boring in my opinion at this point. If that's all you're doing, like you need a meta layer of something else on top of that, something else to garner my interest watching it from start to finish. And if it's just a horrific, hard to watch, gross snuff film, then yeah, I'm not going to be a fan of that and I'm going to find it boring. I guess one little nitpick here at the start is that the movie immediately starts with kind of showing us the ending, which is we see our main character, Sergei, already crazed and manic, attacking a woman and I believe her husband at home, and then gives us like text indication and other things to indicate that this guy came to France as a tourist and then slowly descended into madness and violence and crime. And I would say that kind of takes away a little bit of like just throwing us into a journey. Like I feel like it could have just started with the text letting us know that this is going to go bad and then starting with him coming to France. We didn't need to necessarily see him already crazed right from the jump. So, think of like an Eastern European, Russian type guy visiting France, and it's like a cultural investigation into what that country's like, and he's going to make like a fun little tourism documentary for his producers for the TV station he works at back home.
Okay, Sipegepinan. It means hello everybody. My name is Sorboy Prakov and I'm from Zdorvia. It's a little country between Russia and Belarusia. I'm 29 years old and I'm cameraman for Zdorvian television. I'm here because I've been selected by Olo TV International to shoot a kind of a touristic video trip about Europa. Really happy. It's gonna be my first big movie.
And so he gets a couple of, DV personal handycam, digital handycams, straps one to his head, another one on like a steady rig that's pointed at him, and is just, doing like almost a 24-hour vlog live stream style type recording where he's going around onto the streets of France, getting a experience of the nightlife, trying to get into museums and other things, and it starts off all right the first day. He stays at a hotel, makes some friends with the street life, to party and whatnot, typical tourism stuff. Like, he's just having fun. Also gets some hints here in this part of the movie that Sergei might not be, all there or the best guy. He's a little pushy when it comes to women, and there's like an implied like making a woman uncomfortable in a cab scene, things like that. Like, he's off a little bit from the jump, so when he does eventually fully fall off that cliff into madness, it's gonna be bad. But as he goes along recording this documentary, which is his motivation to film the whole time, you do get that as a found footage movie. It makes sense why he would keep filming. He becomes obsessed with it. Oh, and I do want to point out that this movie does a good job of, I think, using like real life B-roll that he just went out and filmed, like a protest at one point where people are throwing stuff at SWAT officers, and an interaction with a random old man in the subway that I'm pretty sure is just like a random real encounter, which made me go, what the fuck, while I was watching.
Yeah.
Sergei starts using him making this documentary as an excuse to just explore the nightlife and party on his producer's dime. And one night kind of just, takes way too much drugs from some dude and loses his jacket and company credit card, which isn't good. He's just left with whatever cash he brought with him. And it's implied through him calling his producers that they're not happy with that. And I think he gets fired, but he's too kind of ashamed to address the camera and admit to both the camera, the audience, and himself that this production's over and he fucked it up. So he just kind of keeps going for it and telling himself he's recording and going to make like the best travel documentary of all time and whatnot. And one night after trying to go to the Picasso Museum, he gets mugged trying to get back to the hotel and pretty fucked up. They try to steal his camera and break one of his cameras, which leaves him with the choice of spending most of the cash he has left to buy a new camera or just trying to survive and get back home. And he makes the purely self-destructive path to madness choice and, of course, buys a new camera. And in another act of self-destruction, he goes out for more partying, gets really fucked up, and in an attempt to be fully free, burns his passport.
You're crazy, man. Like what?
I think I'm free now.
You're so stupid. Stop that, man.
And I will keep reiterating, as hard to watch as a lot of this subject matter will get, and how ridiculous and over the top it gets too when it does that, this main actor who plays Sergei is really good. Like, he does put in a hell of a performance, fully commits to the insanity and madness that is required for this role and this movie, so I can really appreciate that.
Guizia. I don't know if there's an expression for this in English. Guizia, it means you can enter in the spirit of a space, and the space can enter in your own spirit.
And so after the colossal mistake of burning his passport and fully screwing himself in desperation, he ends up becoming homeless on the streets of France. Starts sleeping in a park. At one point, he calls his mom for help, and she implies there's something that happened back home that he cannot go back there. Like, I don't know if maybe he actually did assault that woman earlier and he's like wanted in France and in his home country now for that too. But he basically says he can't go home because his mom is so distraught about what he's done and what's happening that she's going to like throw him in a mental institution. And another thing that I like that the movie does is it does periodically show us like Sergei going out and recharging his batteries and like stealing electricity. So there's never a question of like, oh, how is he still recording and whatnot. There is the added weirdness of the fact there is an edited in soundtrack, which I guess could be implied that Sergei is editing the footage up until a point, because once he does hit a certain part of madness, the footage just becomes much more direct, like just jump cut from B-roll to B-roll he's filmed with very minor editing. So yeah, I guess I am just realizing that he must have been editing the movie up until a point, and then it was just him assembling the footage, and like the music goes away, and it just fully embraces that insanity. And that's because, oh wow, I totally forgot this part of the movie. There's actually a part where he befriends another homeless guy, Rosie, and seems to be like kind of stable. Like that friendship seems to keep him kind of like on the side of sanity. Like they live in a tent together and everything, and that part of the movie is like weirdly like, I don't want to say sweet, but like you're kind of like the last glimmer of hope before everything that's about to happen. And before you know it, Rosie, clearly who is already sick, dies. And Sergei cremates the body. And yeah, this is when he is fully crazed and gives that look to camera where you know, all right, he's gone.
You do know what? When I play the crazy guy, it's like everybody is just like big shit.
And earlier in the movie, I should also bring up that he is making a point of trying to compare like what he would consider like an unreachable European dream, like comparable to the American dream. Which, you know, they don't exist if you're paying attention. And that's the hard lesson he learns throughout the movie. And so now that he's fully declared himself the crazy guy and the villain, he utilizes the knife that Rosie gave him to follow a woman in an elevator, stalk her to her apartment, and in a really effective scene, dispatch of her. And yeah, the audio editing is, in my opinion, really good for this. And we actually get a nice little he's insane shows full dong. So if you have any problems with male nudity, that is also in this movie. So brace yourself for that if you decide to watch it. And so here we go. He's fully irredeemable. He's just murdering random people. He also just murders a random dude off some sidewalk on the street, which is a well-made scene. It seems pretty real. And from here, the movie kind of devolves. Like I mentioned before, there's no more music, and it's almost just presented as like jump cuts of in-camera editing. And I think it really is just him now living crazed, homeless in the woods and in like a cave, just kind of filming when he can, when the camera works and he has charged batteries and footage. So we're only seeing glimpses of what he's getting into at this point in like the third act on. And the implications during this is pretty messed up. Like at one point he's suddenly in someone's house and you're like, wait, what? And he's like kind of showered and clean, but you can see he's rummaged through their closet and he's like used their makeup and he's messing around in their house. And you're like, did he hurt these people? Did he just break into a random house? So there's a lot of things like that where we kind of just get pieces of definite messed up stuff he was getting into. And from here, he kind of becomes obsessed with getting to the ocean. And while on that journey, the movie actually does an interesting like perspective switch to another camera, and we know that because the quality radically changes from what we've seen throughout the whole movie. And it's just a French couple out in the woods, like chilling. And while they're doing their thing, you know, it's revealed that Sergei is out there as well with his camera recording them, and he attacks them in a way that I haven't really seen anyone do in a slasher horror movie, where they get attacked in an attempt like this. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, that is messed up. I'm surprised I haven't seen that before. Man, that was effective. So after, you know, getting rid of that couple and stealing their canoe, we hit the final coup de grace of the movie, where Sergei has been stalking a family we see, and I guess prepping for this final big explosion of insane violence, when he busts into the house through the front door, attacks the wife, successfully also takes down the husband, knocks them both out. After winning that fight, gets spied on by their child, who can't be more than 12, and then we get a scene of yeah, he throws the kid in the shed and burns him alive. We get a final dinner scene with the corpse of the husband on the chair set up, the wife still alive, tied up and gagged, and Sergei is just sitting in the center eating a piece of what I assume is the charred remains of the kid. But wait, there's more, because while he's eating that, you hear and the movie implies and shows a little of exactly what you think he's gonna do. And he eats the baby. And yeah, that's how far we get. That's how far they go with his descent into depravity and insanity. And like I said, I wish I had been recording myself while watching it, because I'm sure my face like spoke more words and said more than I've said in the last few minutes, rambling. And so yeah, the final shot is Sergei making it to the beaches of France finally. He's completely shaved and looks like the inhuman monster he has become. And just kind of wades out into the ocean to, I hope, drown. I think my comparisons to a Serbian film are pretty apt. This is kind of like the found footage, a Serbian film. So yeah, that was my European nightmare. I mean, it's a movie I've seen. I'm not going to say I regret watching it. Every movie has something you can learn something from. But man, that was a difficult time, to be perfectly honest. Like, it was very well made, well crafted, well paced. Like, it kept my attention throughout. I was impressed with a lot of what it did, and the subject matter and everything that it captured on the found footage, like Handycam style, all worked. I was never questioning it at any point. So it, like, I don't know, if you're like a weird degenerate horror fan like me, I guess you might find some worth or interest in watching this movie, but it's one of those that's like you can't exactly recommend to everybody. So with that, moving on to a much more normal horror fare, and I know that because I have seen this movie before, but I'm going to rewatch it before coming back and talking to you guys again. Our next movie here is Butterfly Kisses. The basic idea of Butterfly Kisses follows a local wedding videographer who has dreams and aspirations of being a legitimate filmmaker, Gavin. And after moving into a new house with his fiancée and mother-in-law, in the basement under like their old water heater, finds a box labeled "Do Not Watch" and a bunch of DV tapes that are old, like from 2004. And so from here, the audience is presented with two timelines. One being the current documentary made by a filmmaker that Gavin has enlisted to help him, named Eric, which is the project we're watching. And the other timeline being what is presented on the old black and white DV tapes that Gavin found. And the movie plays coy with presenting what is on the DV tapes kind of in parallel with the story of Gavin finding them and trying to turn that find into a documentary itself. But to make it easier for me, I feel like it might be easier to kind of break down the story of what is on the DV tapes. And the DV tapes tell the story of two local documentary filmmakers, film students named Sophia and Fieldman. And essentially, they are making a local documentary about the myth of Peeping Tom, aka the Blink Man. And the idea behind this urban legend there is that there's like a local train tunnel that's kind of abandoned and not in use, that they believe if you stand in front of it and stare at it without blinking for an hour, Peeping Tom will appear. And once Peeping Tom appears, every time you blink, he gets one step closer. And once he reaches you, like, think like It Follows. That's a wrap.
For a full hour. And if you can do this without blinking, a Peeping Tom comes out of the shadows and materializes in front of you.
And so Sophia and Fieldman go around interviewing the locals, get some like interesting fun stories about Peeping Tom, including the belief that like a woman in the 80s, like in order to not see Peeping Tom anymore, like burned her eyes out by staring into the sun. But even if you blind yourself, you still blink, and she wasn't able to protect herself that way. So, you know, a lot of like local evolutions onto the urban legend, things like that. It's cool. It's an interesting presentation.
He's right up there. The temptation is death staring you in the face. You do anything you can to avoid him. But he's got a trick up his sleeve. He has very long eyelashes. And you know that thing that you do with babies where you give them a little... He does that, and then you can't help it, you blink. What do you call that?
Can I show it? It's like little...
Butterfly kisses.
And so Sophia and Fieldman decide to enlist like a local staring eye contest champion at their college to try to stare down the tunnel. And obviously he can't get past 15 minutes because no one can go an hour without blinking. And then Sophia and Fieldman have the idea of, wait, what if we set up a camera and just record for an hour? And so they do that, but they don't see anything until the next day when rewatching the footage, they notice...
Didn't want...
Feldman, look, right there. Feldman, look right there.
Yeah, no.
Do you see that?
Fucking... Wait, hold on, was that there?
Dude, do you see that? What the fuck is that? Are
No,
you
I didn't add it.
serious? Oh my gosh, I think
Holy
oh my
shit.
gosh.
But from here, Sophia and Fieldman realize that every time they use that camera, they notice Peeping Tom appearing at some point in the background, getting closer. And he has now attached himself to their camera.
There.
Okay, so it's like a giant bird, right?
No, it's not a giant bird.
Okay, what is it?
What do you think it is?
Oh, I'm rewinding. Rewind. Did you see that?
No.
Okay, wait. Playing. All right, right. Get ready. Oh, right there. Oh, shit.
And every time they stop recording and start recording again, that is a blink, and he gets closer to the camera. And Fieldman actually has like a nice little moment where he tests that out, kind of stupidly. He lets Peeping Tom get way too close to the camera, and Fieldman kind of starts becoming a bit too invested in trying to prove that it's real and what's going on and how do we stop it, because he's like, well, once Peeping Tom reaches the camera, like, what's going to happen to me? Fieldman, you know, as Peeping Tom gets closer, gets more and more crazed, and eventually invites Sophia over one last time to give her all of the DV tapes from their project and that he recorded, as well as the camera, knowing that once she leaves, that's Peeping Tom's getting exactly what he wants, and that'll be it for him.
What happened to your face?
It itched.
Are you on something?
No, I thought the lashes would tickle, but the itch and the camera, I locked it in the basement. I threw away the battery. And when I woke up from sleeping, it was back, and it was taping me.
And the next thing Sophia sees is a news report of Fieldman being brutally murdered and found stuffed into the, like, shelf space under the sink in the kitchen, which is a fun visual to hear. Like, that's definitely messed up. And from there, now Sophia is the obsessed one trying to figure out how to survive Peeping Tom and what's going on, and has a complete breakdown, eventually leading to a pretty violent ending where, in an effort to survive Peeping Tom, takes her eyelids and can't blink anymore without eyelids.
cheat Peeping Tom, but I think I found a way to beat him at his own game.
And so I've just explained to you and, completely spoiled what is on those DV tapes that Gavin found. And so that is the documentary we are now watching, which is Gavin having found what he thinks is authentic, like, weird horror movie lost found footage film footage, enlists another documentarian filmmaker who's a professional, Eric, to document Gavin as he tries to prove this footage is real and turn it into, like, the next great documentary project to, like, go viral and whatnot and get hit and achieve his filmmaking dreams with it. And so Eric comes in, making the documentary that we're currently watching, dubious on whether or not to believe in or trust Gavin.
But the footage never actually takes place in your in-laws' house.
No, it doesn't. And that's another kind of fun coinky dink about this whole thing.
To him, Gavin just looks like a guy who either is so gullible he found, like, an old student film and believes it to be real, or is a charlatan trying to use fake footage to boost his documentary project in the public eye. And honestly, Gavin as a main character doesn't really do any favors for that perspective, because he, instead of, like, really trying to bunker down and authenticate the footage, and, like, he becomes obsessed with, like, cleaning it up for, like, feature film quality and, like, really, like, trying to, like, market the idea instead of, doing the correct ethical journalistic thing and, track down these people, which does happen. Gavin claims that he is not able to find a trace of Sophia or Feldman. The professor that they interviewed, their film professor, he can't find any history of her teaching at the local college. One of the doctors who talks about how long people can, like, keep their eyelids open, can't find any trace of him, but he does eventually track down a local historian who was interviewed about the urban legend of Peeping Tom.
That thing at the end of the tunnel with the Peeping Tom coming in. It was a very striking image. It was iconic.
The documentary is very dubious on believing whether or not this footage is real. Gavin does, slowly as it goes on, kind of start finding evidence that maybe it is a true horror story on found footage. And that's, like, what the movie plays with the entire runtime. Whether or not what you're seeing is real, whether or not they're actors, whether Gavin will eventually prove Peeping Tom exists, really good horror movie fare. And through Gavin's investigations, he starts, coming across more and more evidence that maybe this was legit. An audio engineer finds, like, hidden glyphs in the audio that is Morse code that not only makes an image of Peeping Tom in the audio peaks, but also comes to in Morse code spells out the word blink, which is fun.
So as soon as Peeping Tom shows up, this sound shows up at the same time, is what you're saying?
It kind of looks like Morse code.
But Eric, the documentarian, the legitimate documentarian, just can't get himself to believe Gavin and just kind of views the project as a, like, peek into the mind of someone who is that gullible and stupid, frankly. That's Eric's perspective. And so in line with that, and even though Gavin truly believes he's found something genuine, Eric kind of sets him up for a radio interview because Gavin has reached out to Hollywood. No one wants to produce his documentary. He puts, like, a internet campaign, like a Kickstarter type campaign with a countdown that kind of gets laughed off on social media. And so he's feeling really defeated. And at the height of Gavin feeling defeated that no one cares about this footage that he's found, gets set up by Eric to a radio interview where he gets ambushed by the director of the Blair Witch Project, which is a neat little cameo the movie does. But the director of the Blair Witch Project basically confronts Gavin, calls him a charlatan, says that this is clearly a derivative of the Blair Witch Project and he's just trying to get his 15 minutes of fame, and just completely embarrasses him on the radio live. And you can see in Gavin, like, how defeated that makes him and how, Eric was kind of a dick to him and, like, this whole thing is a joke on him. and in that atmosphere has to admit to his recent fiance that he spent all of his money on this film project trying to prove that this footage is real, and she immediately leaves him.
Hey.
And after that happens, and in that fallout, Eric puts a title card up in the documentary to let the audience know that he has not heard from Gavin. And when he goes to visit Gavin, finds Gavin kind of crazed, believing that he is now seeing Peeping Tom. And they eventually find him at the tunnel, not giving up, having bought a bunch of film equipment to just keep working on his own because he fully believes in Peeping Tom now. And the documentary crew, clearly worried about seeing Gavin in this state, have like this meeting on like, what should we do? He's at the tunnel filming now. Like, we don't know if like we need to get him like some mental help. What is their responsibility? And while they're having that discussion, they hear Gavin just run down the tunnel with his camera, exclaiming that he thinks he's seen Peeping Tom, only for him to disappear.
Somebody's running across the tracks. Come on,
Shit.
Where's the camera? Did he take the camera?
Only for a few days after that, Eric received a package in the mail, which not only contains proof that the DV tapes, the black and white tapes from Sophia and Fieldman were real because it contains Fieldman's diary, it also contains Gavin's diary and another type of digital videotape that no one has seen. And in Gavin's diary, Eric finds Gavin's hotel key, and they go to the hotel, go into Gavin's hotel room, and discover like GoPros and camera equipment and a bunch of research Gavin has been doing about the past story and Peeping Tom. But unfortunately, all of the SD cards have been removed from all the cameras. And in the bathroom, they discover Gavin's body stuffed into the tub, similarly to how I believe they described Fieldman being found.
Get out of here. Let's go. No, what is wrong? What's in there?
Kenny.
Come on. Seriously, come on.
Oh, fuck, dude.
And in discussing what to do with the footage they have after calling the police and whether or not to give it up, Eric and the rest of the documentary crew, and on Eric's insistence, finished the project, and that's what you have just watched. But they also speculate on where did the SD cards go? Where is Gavin's footage? And one of the people kind of speculates the idea.
Who took the cards? Who? They're not in the cameras.
So we'll find out in 10 years.
What?
That's when the footage will be found. Eric, do you believe that the Blink Man is real?
And that's the gambit. That was the movie. You essentially watched Eric's documentary about Gavin and about these DV tapes from a perspective of Eric, who is now changed and doesn't know whether or not to believe if Peeping Tom is real because of what he experienced. And I gotta say, it's a very well-made horror movie. So yeah, Butterfly Kisses. I gotta say, I thoroughly enjoyed this. This is one of the best like found footage horror mockumentaries I think out there. If you haven't seen it, and if me like rambling on about the plot and everything has not turned you off completely, definitely check it out. It's really good, and I don't have much more to say. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a great little indie horror movie, and yeah, I'm surprised more people aren't aware of it. So there we go. Those were 5 more found footage horror movies that I hope either hit your acceptability of being disturbing, unknown, and forgotten, because, I mean, one of these out of the 5 was definitely hitting the disturbing bar. And I hope that if you came into this list to try to find a found footage horror movie you genuinely have never heard of before, that one of these hit the mark for you. So I guess, like, to recap, yeah, I never really know how to end these videos, so I guess I might as well just go ahead and. Oh, wait, what are you? As I said, I never really know how to end these, so I'm just gonna go ahead and say, go ahead and like, subscribe, comment, share, all that. If this video gets any sort of attention, then I will definitely make another one of these found footage lists because I can see what the people like. And heck, you know, if this video gets any sort of attention like the last one did, that's definitely motivation to make more of this if people enjoy it, because who doesn't like getting attention, right? So, yeah, gosh, I should just go, right? Yeah, I'm just gonna go.